All right. Okay. Okay. So we learned in the Mishnah on Daf Ayin, the Mishnah was talking about Tavach u'Machar, and the Mishnah said a whole bunch of dinim. The last thing that the Mishnah was talking about was what's called Shchita She'eina Ruya. So there were four cases. The first two cases was that he's being sheichet not with intention of eating it. Either he's gonna use it for medicine, or he's gonna give it to the dogs to eat. So that was the Mishnah said that is, even though he's not being sheichet, he's not in order to eat it. It's still considered tavach u'macha that he's mishalim dalad v'hei. Then there was a second part of that, and it was hashoichet v'nimtzeis treifa. He was shoichet, and he found that afterwards that so v'nimtzeis treifa could mean one of two things. It could either mean that the shechita went wrong, that it didn't end up being a good shechita, or it could mean that after the shechita they found out that the behemoth itself was not good. Okay, or hashoichet chulam ba'azara. That means it was a behemoth kulim, but he did it in the azara. And the halacha is that if someone shechet chulam azara, so it's also about no, you don't use it. You're not allowed to eat it. At least you're not allowed to eat that behemoth, which was really chulin, and he did it in the azara. So the Tana Kama says Misham Tashlumi al Bava Chamisha. Even though it's a shchita which is in a ruya, it's still the Lamaisi he was shechet and he pays dollar vehei. Rabbi Shimon pointed Mishnei. Rabbi Shimon says that those two, the last two, meaning when it's shechet for klovim or for refuah, so even though he's not intending to eat it, so he agrees to the Tanakama that that's considered a shechita. But in the second two, when it's taka also ba'achila, either because it was nimtze streifa or because it was chulam azara, so that Rabbi Shimon holds is what's called shechita she'eina ruya, and shechita she'eina ruya is not considered a shechita. Now, the Gemara is really going on the second case, on the case of Shochet Chulam Ba'azar. So Shochet Chulam Ba'azar, it's the Vachulam. HaShochet v'nim tesir, HaShochet Chulam Ba'azar, so the Tanna Kama says that it's considered Shchita Ru'uya, and he pays Dalet Vehei. Amalei Rav Chaviva Mechuzno, that's a place, Le Rav Ashi. He tells Rav Ashi, Shma Mina, Eino L'Shchita, El L'Besoif. There's a shayla every time someone shechs, when's it considered the shechita? Is the entire process considered the matter, or no? Really, when it becomes mutter only in the last second, and the beginning is just in order to get to when you kill the behemoth, when you shechit the roiv shnayim, and the beginning is sort of like a heksher, but it happens the last second. So over here, he was being shechit in the azara, right? So it's going to become when you shechit in the azara, it becomes also ba'ana. Now, if you hold that yesh no l'shchita mitchila v'atzoif, that means that from the beginning he's already starting to be shoichet. So we said that chulin which is nishchat and azara becomes also b'hana. So by the time he actually does the tovach, it's not worth anything anymore because it's already suri hana. So even according to the Tanakama that should hold that the shchita she'ena ruyo is considered a shchita, there wouldn't be anything left to pay. So Amalei Chavim Ravashi Shma Mino from the fact that the Tanakama holds that they have to pay. Ein al shchita elo lebesoif, because the iyesh no shchita mitchila va'atzoif. If he would hold that the entire time is the shchita, kimin the shochet ba'purta osra. Right when he starts the shchita, it's already shchita ba'azara, and it becomes osra. Idoch, the rest is already lav the mori kotovach. When he actually finishes the shchita, it's already something which is isuri hana, and isuri hana, so it's already not considered that the person owns it. So what are you going to pay dalad vehei? You're not going to pay the owner dalad vehei. By the time you got to the actual tvicha, when the chiyuv of dalad vehei came, it was already finished the shchita. So he tried to prove from that our Mishnah holds that ain't a shchita el b'seif. Amalei Ravuna b'rei Rava. No, here we go. This is the other shita. Ki kamechayvi ahu purta. That means that in the beginning, when he starts being shoychet, that's when the chiyuv dalad vehe comes. We were assuming that the beginning of the shchita to become shchita's chulam bazara is right in the beginning of the shchita, and only at the end that's when it's considered tavach. So he says no. When you start being shoychet, that's also when the chiyuv tzvicha comes. Amalei Ravashi. So Rav Ashi says, "Lo tidche." You can't be madche that way. You can't push me away by saying that Kika Machayev, Ahu put it that he's Machayev for the beginning, the Dal Vehe is also Machayev, the beginning of the Shechita, because the Pasuk says, Utvachoi oy mecharoi, which means only when you finish the whole Tvicha, Utvachoi kuloi be'inon. That in order to be Machayev for Dal Vehe, it's not enough just to have the beginning of the Shechita. If it's considered Shechita's Chulim Ba'azara, so maybe the beginning of the Shechita is enough of a Shechita to be considered Shechita's Chulim Ba'azara. But when you want to be Mechayev in Dalet Vehei for Utvacha Yom Mecharoi, that's only, not sure what the Mashmos is exactly, but when it says Utvacha, it means the full Shechita. And since when he finishes the full Shechita, it's already also Bahana, that so then you won't have that. So we're back that you could prove from here that Ein Shechita B'Soif. Elokashia. In other words, with a famous machloikas, everyone knows that there's a machloikas. If yeshin l'shchita metchila v'atzoif or ein l'shchita ela b'soif, and if from this Mishnah you can prove that ein l'shchita ela b'soif, so it's a kasha on the mandama that holds yeshin l'shchita metchila v'atzoif. Amalei hachi yomer Rav Gamona mishmei Rava. He has a way how even in the azara, even if it was shechet in the azara, the end of the shchita is what is still going to belong to the bailam. Why? He started the shchita outside and he finished it inside. So when he started the shchita outside, it wasn't chulim bi'azara. Let's just read inside. Kigun sheshochat mikta simonim b'chutz ugmaram b'fneim, meaning that he started the shechita outside of the azara. So our whole kasha was that from the beginning of the shechita, it already becomes also ba'ana because it's shechita's kulam ba'azara. So he says no, he started the shechita outside the azara and he finished it in the azara. So when he starts it outside the azara, it doesn't become also ba'ana yet. It only becomes also. It's only this when it's inside. Outside. Now, someone said the same thing with Yeshua Shchita Mitchila Vatzoif or not on the second case of them, on the another case. On the there's a brayso Omar Shimon Mishum der Levi Savo. This is the main machlokas itself. This is a very similar thing, but this is the machlokas itself. The Shimon Mishmei of Levi Sava says that when someone's being shaken, when's considered the heter of shchita at the end of the shchita. We see the whole shchita as one long process of it becoming muter. Which is the same names as we had before. I'm going to prove, or lema, let's say, Chasava Abi Yochanan, Chulin Shenishchatu Ba'azara is lav doiraisa, cannot be iser doiraisa. There's a machloikis if Chulin Shenishchatu Ba'azara is also in the raisa and the rabbanon, because the regular case of Shchut Eichut, what it says in the Torah is if you take kachim and you shecht it outside, that for sure is also. Over here we're doing the other way. He's taking behema which is not kachim, which is Chulin, and being shechet in the azara. So there's a machlokas if that's also considered shchute chutz or not, and he's going to prove that Rabbi Yochanan that holds yeshin al shchita mitzchila v'atzoif must hold that it's not doiraisa. Why? The isol kedai toch doiraisa mechishochet leipurta the same kasha mechishochet leipurta osra. He's going to hold that one when you start being a shchita, so then it's already considered chulam ba'azara. And idoch, the rest of the shchita, lav the mori katala. And how come the Mishnah says that if you shechet chulam ba'azara, you have to pay dalat vehei? By the time he gets to the actual shchita at the end, it's already also bahana. So again, you wanted to prove from that yesh no shchita mitzchila v'atzoif. And the dichoy came over here. Amale Ravacha Brei de Ravano Kika Mechayvinami Ahu Porta. You know when he becomes chayiv the tzvicha mechira, also on the beginning of the shchita. And then Rav Ashi told him the same thing. Rav Ashi tells him, Loititche, you can't say that you mechayiv the tzvicha or mechira for the beginning of the shchita, because it says utvachoi kuloi beinan veleka, and there is no full tzvicha. Elo kashio, what's the man the Omar Eino the shchita elo b'soif going to do with yeshon the shchita b'tchila v'atzoif? What's he going to do with our Mishnah? Amalei hachi Omar Rav Gamona mishmei de Rava ki ka mechayiv. What's the case of our Mishnah that you're going to be chayiv dalad v'hei for chulam ba'azara? That he started it outside and finished the shchita inside. So it comes out that the shchita of the tvachoi of dalad v'hei and the being chulam b'fnim is at the same second. How is it chicken with the animal? Yeah. While he's doing shchita. So okay, so a lot of times says that these cases it's not that we're really looking for this case. We want to talk about the yesod. What's going to be with shchita shein ruya? If it would be something which becomes also, would you be chayiv to pay dal vehei? And we found the case of chulim ba'azara. So you caught me on a vort that hey, it's going to become also ba'ano before the dal vehei. To sader it. That's not really. I think we're mishulim with that.
Walk a bit though. You can walk a bit.
It's possible, but it's like interesting that the Mishnah talks about this funny.
It's probably not going to be cooperating. You would be on the border and maybe realize you
Right, inside in the door, out the door. Okay. Now the Mishnah.
Also, sit down and usually not standing up.
Right, then that. That was by the house going in.
Yes.
Better way, but
Okay. Now the Mishnah over here is going to continue. Soon we're going to have a Mishnah on the Ayin Daled, which is going to be the flip side of all these Mishnayos. But as of now, we're still continuing. And there's a halacha of Eidim Zoymimim. Eidim Zoymimim means that if there's two witnesses that say about that Ruvain is chayav to Shimon money, and then we find out that they were lying. But not stand that they were lying. There's a certain case that another group of Eidim comes and says that they were with us somewhere else. You didn't even see this case. So then these Eidim have to pay the amount that they wanted to be Mechayim. So let's say they say, we saw Ruvain stealing from Shimon. So how much does Ruvain have to pay Shimon now? He has to pay, I'm sorry, Ruvain stole from Shimon $100. So they have to pay $200, right? Because they pay the Keren and they pay what's called Kefel. So okay, so now if we find out that these Eidim are going to be Zimimim, so they're going to have to pay $200. Let's say they say we saw Ruvain stealing and Tavachu Machar, so he has to pay 5 times as much or 4 times as much, and then they were found Zimimim, so they're also going to have to pay 4 or 5 times as much. Till here, it's relatively simple. The problem is going to be that sometimes you have a story that has different stages, different scenes, right? Let's say the Eidim want to say, we saw Reuven stealing from Shimon an animal on Sunday, and Monday we saw him sell it or slaughter it. So they wanted to be Mechayev him, but this took place on 2 different days. So if it's one pair of Eidim that says the whole thing, it's okay, the whole account, the whole chiyuv is based on these 2 witnesses. But you could have this kind of chiyuv with 2 groups of Eidim. One pair of witnesses says we saw Reuven stealing from Shimon, and a different group of witnesses we saw Shimon, we saw Reuven, he says the Ganev, we saw him slaughtering it, or we saw him selling it. So the extra chiyuv of Dalet Vehei is only coming based on the second pair of Eidim. So basically, we have the first pair of Eidim being Mechayev 2 times as much for the Gneva itself, and the second one is being Mechayev another 2 or 3 times as much. Because 4 altogether.
It can't be that he can get more. It can't be that he can get 7 times the amount. Then
you
can't get kofo
because
and times.
You don't do that. I don't think.
Because you can't.
If you find it live, then it's 2 times as much. If you find it dead, then it's 4 or 5.
But they were trying to get him. He would have had to pay the kofel, and he would have had to pay. What
would he have had to pay?
That's the question. Yeah,
I think he would only have to pay 4 or 5 because you're saying it ends up one long story that he stole and he sold it. Even though it was different groups of Eidim, but that's how we're going to make the story. Once we accept all the witnesses, that's how going to be our story.
The Eidim have to pay what they intended him to pay, and if it's 2 separate witnesses, are we saying that it was? Oh, I guess we're going back to the.
So the first ones wanted to do.
We looked at them as the first set, I guess.
Right, and then even the second set, how much more was my witnessing? How much more was what I said going to make him pay? He was anyway going to pay the first 2. So what I was going to do was only. Okay, so this is if we have 2 sets of witnesses and we get them both. Now there's also a case. Let's say we only find out one is lying, not the other. Let's say there was one set of witnesses that said that he stole, and another set of witnesses that said that he slaughtered it. And then we find out that only these guys are liars, are Zomanim. The first guys still might be true. So what's going to happen? Reuven still has to pay kefil because we have still good witnesses that say that Reuven stole. The second half of the story now is not true, and these Eidim are Zoymimim. So they have to pay the extra, I guess, right? The 2 or 3. So that's what the Mishnah is talking about these cases.
If it's the other way around, then he wouldn't pay. Then they wouldn't pay anything.
Let's say you find out that the first ones are Zomanim,
then the slaughter.
The second one wouldn't be Mechayev anything. Very good. That's exactly what the Mishnah is going to say.
let's say the same set of witnesses. So they saw Monday stolen, and Tuesday he slaughtered. So they'll become Zimmerman on Monday.
Even if it's the same
Yeah,
people.
so so the testimony Monday that he stole is good, but they slaughtered
It's not.
Zimmerman. So but they become Zimmerman that we had that before, right? They become Zimmerman from before. From first,
So that the Gemara is also going to talk about. Okay. So here we start. Case number one. Relatively simple. Gonav al pishnayim. Gonav al pishnayim, meaning Reuben stole from someone based on the mouth of two witnesses. In other words, there's two witnesses that say that Reuben stole. V'torach u'mochar al piyam, and based on their mouth, based on what they're saying, he also, the same Reuven who stole from Shimon, also slaughtered it. So there's two witnesses, or one set of witnesses, that say that Reuven stole and he slaughtered it. And then v'nimtu zayimim, these witnesses were found edim zayimim, so they now have to mishalmim hakoil. What's hakoil? Everything. What's everything? 4 or 5 times the amount that they stole. The whole chiyuv that they were trying to get Reuven to have to pay, that's what they now have to pay. Case number one, relatively simple. Let's do it. Okay. This is case number one. Case number two. Gonav al pishnayim. This is more complicated. Gonav al pishnayim, v'tovach u'mochar al pishnayim achirim. There's two witnesses that say that he stole, and there's a different two witnesses that say that he slaughtered it. V'tovach u'mochar al pishnayim achirim. So now, if both of them were nimtu zaymimim, elu ve'elu nimtu zaymimim, so then what happens? We say harishonim. In other words, the ones who were made for the gneva itself, they're mishalmim tashlumei chefel, because that's what they tried to be mechayev. Achronim, the second cut of Edim, which were saying that he was tavach u'mocha, they paid the rest. Mishalmim tashlumei gimel. This is going to a case of 5. So after the kefel, after the double, there are 3 more left. How, right? Now, continuing this case, nimtzu achroinim zoymimim, meaning the first ones are still true, meaning we still assume that they're true, but only the second ones that said that he slaughtered it is nimtzu zoymimim. So then, who mishalim tashlumi kefel, because the first set of Edom is still considered true. So Reuven stole it, Reuven pays. The hain, the second cut of Edom, which would be made zoymimim, they're mishalmid tashlumi gimel, because they wanted to be mechayev that amount more than he was really supposed to do. There's another case which we didn't talk about. What's going to happen if the first one is Zaymim? Right? So if the first one is Zaymim, so the Edom Zaymim will have to pay 2. And the second case, the second set of Edom is automatically falls off if there's no. Okay, but we're going to talk about that. Now, how about Echol min Achroinim Zaymim? Oh, I should have said this. In order to be Mechayev the Edom Zaymim to pay, it has to be that both Edom were made Zaymim. So echad min ha'achronim zoymim. Let's say you it's enough not to get the second cut of Edom that they should have to pay what the damages that they were trying to cause, but it's enough to break the validity of the second Edus, because you show that one of them was the Eid Zomim. So in order to be Mechayev them to pay these Edom Zomim, you would have to get both of them to be Edom. That we don't, both of them to be Zomim. And that we don't have. But if we find one of them Zomim, so that Edus falls off, because now you only have one good Eid left.
Does that work with everything? Meaning, in all cases, if one aid is a zomim, then the person being charged isn't guilty, but they also don't have to pay?
Correct. Because it ends up being, what do you end up having after the one aid is a zomim? One aid, which might be saying the truth, is saying that someone stole. So the guy, the gun of itself, you can't make him pay because there's only one aid. And the aid of zomim won't have to pay because he's going to say, maybe it's, you see the second guy saying, I'm saying what I'm saying is true. So you don't have 2 Eidim Zomim.
in a monetary here, Reuven would have to swear that he didn't steal.
So
But
correct.
would the Zomim have to? Then would that witness have to swear that he didn't?
I think not. I think the Eid Echad Mechayev Shvur is only on the Baldin, not the Eid. Okay, yeah, more complicated, but so okay. Echad min Achronim Zoymimim. You find one of the second guys. The Achronim is the ones who said that he slaughtered it. So then Butler Edus Shniya. The second Edus was Batel, and then what do you have? That Reuven has to pay the kefil, but not Dalet Vei. He doesn't have to pay the rest. The Edom don't need to have to pay. How about Echon min Arishonim Zeimimim? They found one of the first Edom was a Zeimimim, the ones who said the Gneva. So he for sure doesn't have to pay kefil, but the mission now says Batla Kol Ha'edus. Shem Ein Gneva Ein Tvicha Ve'Ein Bechira. Once you break the first set of Edus, so even if we didn't prove any of the second set of Edus that they were actually lying or that they were Edom Zomimim, but their Edus already doesn't hold any water. Because what was their Edus? That Reuben slaughtered the animal that he stole. But if he didn't steal it, so he just slaughtered his own animal. In other words, what they're saying that he slaughtered it wasn't going to make him pay anything anymore. So once you get one of the Rishonim Zaymimim, that you broke the Edus of the Geneva of the stealing, so then the Tvicha Mechira automatically falls off. It's only standing on top of the Tvicha Mechira.
And is that only against Reuven, but still that works for Reuven. But does that work still against the Zomim? Meaning they can't charge him, but they're still Orim Zomim. They're still.
If later you find out, but I think that in order for them to be chayav as Edom Zomim, it's only in a case that their Edus would be able to charge Reuven. Once one of the first Edus falls off, so the second guy's Edus is not going to charge Reuven. So now, even if you find out that they were Zomimim, they weren't really Zomimim because they weren't really charging Reuven anymore. They tried to, but it didn't. It really didn't work. So let's say that. Now there's a machlokas. Let's say there's Edom Zomim. There's two people that try to charge Reuven that he has to pay $100, and then we find out that they were lying. They weren't even there that day. They were somewhere else that day. So this Edus, of course, falls off. And from now and onward, we're not going to trust these people anymore because these are witnesses that we have experience with them that they lied. But let's say they were witnesses also last week and a month ago and 2 months ago. So now that we find out that they were Edom Zomim, do we take off all their previous Eduses too? Because now we just found out that they're not trustworthy, or no? Right. We have to be choishes that they lied. In other words, we can't accept their Edus, or no? They just decided to become Edom Zomim now, and all the Edus that they said till now is good. It's just from now and onward that we're not gonna listen to their Edus anymore.
Only from when they testified
which later became a lie. So what's going to be with the Edus that they said before we found out that they were lying?
we found out.
I mean, in a case that.
Oh, I guess okay, you're right. And not even if we find out only 2 months later, we're for sure going to take them off from when they said no. No. Right. Again, I said it wrong. You're right. I said it wrong. I said that even what they before the Edus.
Now far back.
Right. So that's not okay, right. So they said the Edus this, and the Edom Zomimim came 2 weeks later. So the question is gonna be for these 2 weeks, in between we found out that already 2 weeks ago they lied. But we only found that out today. So do we backtrack from when we know that they lied and onward, or no? Only from when we know about it and onward. You're saying about what they said before that Edus, yeah, for sure. Maybe they were tzaddikim and then they decided to become Rishonim. The whole shadow of the Gemara is from when they said the sheker until we found out that it was a sheker. Right. Okay.
Is that I thought all court cases there's a retroactive way to fix a ruling?
Rulings there is a way sometimes to retroactively fix it. And over here, we're for sure going to take off once we find out that it's Edom Zomimim. So we're not going to charge the first person. But the question is, if let's say they said other edus on a different case, are we retroactively going to say that they were really puzzle or not? You want to know why not?
And that about
That's really what you're
on
asking.
open cases. No, my question was, let's say between those 2 weeks, someone else got charged 100 shekels based on their ADIS. And we found out they're Zomin. Do they have to go and pay back that guy the 100 shekels, or since it's done, it's
No, I
done?
think they would have to.
Right.
If it's the
That's
edus itself. That's the question?
I thought
Yeah, what was your case?
Are we asking on open cases or closed cases?
No, even closed cases.
Yeah,
If,
that's my
if because of their ADOS, they charged, someone had to pay 100 shekel. Now is he gonna have to return 100 shekel?
Right,
The
but they're on a
$2.
different case. On
Maybe
this
it's-
case
it's-
itself, we
it's-
for sure go back.
So I say that because that means anytime start something, maybe in the future they can be fined.
Right, so you always have to keep everything on records, and then when someone becomes puzzles,
And that's so
it might be practically it is, but in logic, that's what should be, no? I would say like this, Misvara, I would say he becomes, when did he lie? He lied 2 weeks ago. He didn't lie today. You just found out about it today. But really, he lied 2 weeks ago. So in the Svara, I would say that. But you're right that practically it's going to be very hard to everything's al tanai, you know.
and any store anything deal maybe 3 years from now is going to be found
But
out.
then he didn't sell it, and he
Yeah,
didn't. So okay. So that's a machlok.
Rapinkus. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not understanding quite the Mafreya case. If somebody he gave testimony in, I didn't understand the Rashi. He gave testimony in Nissan, and then what
Correct.
happened in ER? And in ER, what happened? The AD came.
People came. The Adim Zomim, the Adim Mezimim came in ear. In other words, only in ear did we find out that that they were lying.
Does it mean that when they said that in Nissan they did it, then you're saying, how can they have said it? They were with me and they said it in ER, or is it a different case?
Correct. No, correct. That case, they come in ER and they say, "How could you say that on Aleph Nisan you saw Reuben lending money? You are with us somewhere else."
So what's the Mafreya? They're talking about Aleph Nissan.
Correct. So that for sure is going to become Eidim Zomimim. But let's say on Chalamoid Pesach or whatever, some other day, they also were Eidim for another case. In between Aleph Nisan and Aleph Iyar, they were also witnesses on another case. So are we going to take down that other case too? Because
in other words, the Eidim that make them Zomamin is for a later date, and then we're saying maybe it would apply to a previous date. That's what the Mafreya is.
It's not just a previous date. It goes back to the date that they said the lie, that they witnessed something.
So I thought you gave the example of that they saw them on Pesach. So if they saw them on Pesach, for sure they're Zomamin for that. But if they also testified on the 1st of Nisan, maybe they were already.
No, so again, they testified. Maybe I made a mistake. They testified on the 1st of Nisan that someone lent money, and then on the 1st of Iyar comes Adam and says, a month ago, the 1st of Nisan, that you said that you saw something in Yerushalayim, it's not true. You were with us in Bnei Brak. So today, on the 1st of Iyar, we find out that they were really Zomim already on the 1st of Nisan.
And they're not good Eidim. And they're puzzle Eidim.
Right, and now they're puzzle Eidim. From when we know about this, now we say because on the 1st of Nisan you said a false testimony, so you're puzzle Eidos. Now the question
you
is,
mean just like somebody
that they were.
In other words, they're going to be puzzled from Eidos because of their actions. Just like somebody who eats bread in the street, you're going to be puzzled from Eidos. Doesn't matter now that unless you did tshuva, I don't know. I see you eating bread in the street, so you can't be an aid. I see that you were with us on the 1st of Nisan, so you can't be an aid. So Lemafreya means, doesn't mean at before the fact. It means from
the 1st of Nisan.
From the
1st of Nisan.
You were, and now until the future forever, they're not going to be kosher Eidim?
Correct. In other words, from the 1st of Iyar and onward, for sure that they're going to be Pasal Eidim. Because now we know already that they're Eidim Zomimim, and we put in our database that these people had a false testimony. So from the 1st of Iyar and onward, they're for sure Pasal. The question is, do we make them also puzzle from when they actually testified, or only from when we found out about it and put it in our database?
I
And
see.
the nafkamina is going to be, let's say they had a different edus on Pesach, then no one was mazim. They just started, they were also witnesses on a different case. So are we going to now retract and say, oh, they were already puzzle edus because it was after their false testimony? Or no, since we didn't know at that time that they were false edus, so we already accepted it, and now it's already a done deal.
Like status quo. Okay, and so Abaya is the one that says they would be puzzle.
So very good. So Idmar, Eidzomim, Abaya Omer Lemafreya Hu Nifsal, yeah, that he would become Nifsal from when he testified the false testimony. And Rava says Mikanu Labo Nifsal means only from when we found out that that they were puzzled. And now the Gemara is going to explain what the svar is. Abaya Omer Lemafreya Hu Nifsal, Me'ahu Shato, the acid from the time that he testified falsely, Havale Rasha, right? Because it's even worse than eating bread in the street. He actually testified false. And Vatira Amra al Toshes Rasha aid. They now let him make him an aid because he's a Rasha. And since we know that from Aleph Nisan he testified falsely, so from then he's a puzzle aidus. That's Abaye. So when he becomes puzzle what's called lemafreya. Rav Omar mikanu laba unifsal. That it only becomes puzzle from the first of ear and onward, which we said practically we would understand it, but logically we didn't really understand it because the Maisa he said the Edus Sheker, he said it on Aleph Nisan. So now Rav is going to explain why does he say that. So he says that Eid Zomim is not just that we found out for real, that we know for sure that this first Eid was a bad guy, was testified falsely. Eid Zomim Chidushu. It's that we trust the second Eidus more than the first Eidus. So what happens? Two Eidim say we were in Yerushalayim on Aleph Nisan and we saw Reuven lending Shimon money. Then later, at a later date, two Eidim come and say, how could you testify that on Aleph Nisan you saw this in Yerushalayim? You were with us in Bnei Brak. So the first Edom tell back to these Edom Zomim, they say, we weren't in Bnei Brak, we were in Yerushalayim. You're just making up a story. But the Torah's Machadish that we trust the second Edom more than the first Edom. There's a little bit of a reason to this, but we trust the second Edom more than the first Edom because the second Edom are being made on the Edom themselves. In other words, if they would just be staying on the case, then we wouldn't. Let's say two Edom say Reuven lent Shimon money, and two other Edom say Reuven did not lend Shimon money. So then it's mamish trey. But over here, it's still a chiddush of the Torah, but there's a little bit of a svara because the first two Edom they're being made on a certain transaction. Reuven lent Shimon money. The second Edom are being made on the Edom themselves that they were somewhere else. Now a person is not really neman to say anything about himself. You can't say, I am a kosher aid. Like that, we understand a little bit why the second one has preference. But the Maisa, it's a chiddush that we trust the second aid more than the first. So the Eidim Zomim is a chiddush. In other words, it's not that we found out for sure that we know that they lied on Aleph Nisan, like we portrayed it, which is after the din of the Torah, that we know now that these guys are liars. You don't really know that they're liars, maybe trust them more than the second guys.
They're subject to the same thing the first ones are too, meaning another set of witnesses can come make them. It's not, yeah.
That might happen. But so far we didn't have that. So far we just had two Adim that said on Sunday Reuven and Shimon money, and two Adim came and were mazim them. So we trust the second Adim and we assume, saying we act upon that, but we assume that the first Adim are the lying. But that's a chiddush. So you can't tell me that, from Aleph Nisan, when they said the Eidim, they're already in Russia. Because the whole din of Eidim Zarim is a chiddush. Again, Rav Alma Mikanu Labo Nifsal, why? Eid Zoimein Chidushu. It's a chiddush that you trust the second Eidus more than the first one. The hard trey utreininu. Be'etzem, it's 2 against 2. My chozes, why do you see? In other words, why do you assume that Tzayis Lahani, that you listen to the second group of Eidim? Maybe Tzayis Lahani, listen to the first group of Eidim. But we don't say that. We say we listen to the second one. Telkoch, because it's a chiddush from the Torah, Ein lechaboy elo mishas chidushoy ve'elach. you only know that we trust the second group of Eidim and assume that the first ones were liars only from the time that the Torah was Mechadish this din to you and onward. The Hainu, from the time that we made them Zoymimim and onward, which is Aleph Iyar. Not that we're going to now say that they were really Apostle Eidos from Aleph Nisan, but only from Aleph Iyar when the Torah was Machadish that he was a Eidim, that we assume that the first one was a liar, and onward, that's when he's going to be considered Apostle Eid. So that was again Abaye says L'mafreo nifsal, and Rava says Mikanu lahabo nifsal. Ikedamri, that in principle, Rava Nami Ka'abaya Svirale. Rava also agrees that once the Torah says the Chiddush of Eidim Zomimim, so then we technically, in principle, we should passel them from Aleph Nisan. But like what you said, I'm sorry, Rava Nami Ka'abaya Svirale, the Oma Lemafreya Hu Nifsal, V'hocha, over here, Hainu Time of the Rava that says that only from Aleph Ir and onward, like you said, practically, now start going back, everything. In between, people bought the fields based on these Adim, and now we're gonna find right based on how much money someone had a lien on his apartment, or how much money someone this, and the Etzim think that there was Adim for the Mechira. Someone sold. Some on we said that Aleph Nisan there was he said Eidos that Reuven stole from Shimon money. Then Pesach he was an Eid on a Shtar Mechira. Someone sold his house to someone else. Now we find out that from Aleph Nisan they were really liars. So now we're gonna have to start reassembling our whole. You need a whole computer program to start reassembling everything that these people were Eidim to go back. So it's just, I don't know if it means too complicated. Say that the Lukucha doesn't mean too complicated.
No, but
Someone else is going to lose on it. That's what it means.
Well, they're gonna lose. Is that they're gonna lose more? If they
I don't know if it's necessarily lose, but someone who's an
Something
innocent
got something,
bystander,
something
right?
else.
He just sold his thing and he took two Eidim. He didn't have anything to do with the first case to become this. And now he's going to end up losing out because now the sale is not a good sale. We should say the Lukuchos. My benayu. Tasidu trey lachad v'trey lachad. Okay. If we say that it's mishum pseida de lakuchos, that means it's not an imprintable thing, it's practical. So then we're for sure going to say that from Aleph Ir and onward, that's the only time we're going to passel. We're not going to go and passel back from Aleph Nisan because that's just going to make it too complicated and innocent people are going to lose out. But the first Lashon held that Rava is saying it in principle. Why? Because he said that Eidim Zomim the Chiddush, because really it's 2 against 2. So Mechatesi, you believe the second one, maybe the first one's really saying the truth. The Torah says that we believe the second one, but only from the time that they actually come and onward. That was the first Lashon of Rava. According to that, then only when this is true that it's a Chiddush, that's when we're going to say from when the second group comes and onward. But let's say we're going to have 4 Eidim come to be Mazim. 2 against 1 Eid and 2 against the other Eid. So now we don't really have, in Svara, what would we say? Even in Svara, we would say it's 1 against 2. So I would trust the 2 more than the 1. Till now, we were saying it's 2 against 2. So then in Svara, I would say they're both equal. The Torah is Machadish that these are more Nema. So from that time and onward, it's possible. We don't do it retroactively. But over here, then in Svara, we're be'emes assuming that the first Eidim were liars because there's 2 against 1 to each Eid. So then maybe they become puzzle from the earlier time. Now, Sidube Trei Lechad, there's 2 Eidim being Mazim, 1 Eid over here, and another 2 Eidim being Mazim, the other one of the Eidos. So then maybe Rava would agree to Abaye to fasel from the first time, according to that lashon. Inami de pasleninu begazlanusa, that they don't come and say you guys were with us somewhere else. Rather, they say, "Oh, these first Eidim, I'll show you a different case that they're already known gazlanim. In other words, they're known people to do wrong, and you can't trust a gazlan for Eidos because if he would do a avera and take someone else's money, so of course he would also say witness to take out money falsely. So it's not just that they come and say, "Oh, you guys were with us somewhere else," but they say you guys were already a Russia a long time ago, and then there would be more of a svara to trust the second pair of Eidim more than the first guys. Lahachlish in the Amrus Mishum Chiddush Leka, meaning there's no reason to say only from the second time and onward. The svara of Rava to say that it's only Mikla Haba does not apply. That's what Leka is. Lahachlish in the Amrus Mishum Seder de Lakuchos, if the svara to say only Mikanu Lahaba Nifsal is because of the practicality, Ika, then the reason still applies. Okay, one second. So that was a machlokas Abaye and Rava, and we had two biurim in the machlokas Abaye and Rava. Okay. Now, Omar, what's the psak? This is an interesting one. Omar biyom yomidifti ovad Rav Papa, which is the generation after Abaye and Rava, of the kavasei de Rava, that by the when two pairs of Edom come, we're only gonna Pasal, the Edus, we're only going to say that the Edus are invalid from when the Edim Zomimim came and onward, like Rava, Mikanu Lahabohu Nifsal. Ravashi Amar, Hilchasa Kavasei da Abaye. He argues, and Ravashi basically takes the side of Abaye that Limafreya Nifsal from the beginning. All the Eduyos from all the witness that he said in between, all the testimonials from in between, we also take it down. Now, that's the Gemara. Now, the later Gemara already says, puts in a vehilchasa. This is already next. Vehilchasa kavasei da Abaya v'yal kagam. We know that usually when there's a machlokes of Abaya and Rava, the halacha is always like Rava, besides for 6 times in Shas, and one of them is over here. Eid zoymim. The ayin is eid zoymim if it's l'mafreya hunifsal or mikan ula'abah hunifsal. There's yir shalamidas, eid zoymim, lech yoyim ve'elav. This is like a siman. Yal kagam. There's a siman of 6 halachos, right? So the yud is 1 halacha, usually midas. The aid is aid zimim mafreya unifsa. The lamed is lechia omid me'elav. I don't remember all the rest. And one of them, and so this is one of the halachos. The Kedushim is on the beer.
Get and Mumar.
Oh yeah? Fair. So okay, so the Gemara over here paskins like Abaye. That lemafreya hunifsal, which is in a sense what we would also say logically. Okay. How do we get into this whole thing? Why do we bring up this Eid Zomim? Because now we're going to go back to our Mishnah. Our Mishnah was a whole complicated Mishnah, and now we're going to bring our Mishnah as a proof.
I mean, the 6 times we're saying is when the halacha is like Abaya in relationship to what?
To Rava, when he argues with Rava.
Okay.
So there's many machlokes in the Shas between Abaya and Rava, and all of them, the halacha is going to be like Rava, besides for these 6 halachos that the halacha is like Abaya. Okay, and now we're going to try to prove there was like a sugya that's somewhere else. Now we're going to try to prove from our Mishnah over here, which spoke about Eidim Zomimim, whether we can figure out like Abaya or Rava. Tanan. Let's start it. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to pretty long sugya, but let's start. Let's see how far we can get. Tanan. Gonav al Pishnayim, we said in our Mishnah, if there were 2 witnesses that said that Reuven stole from Shimon, V'tovach u'mocher al piem, and these same witnesses also said that later he was toveach u'mocher, V'nimtzu zomimim, and afterwards we find out that they were Edim Zomimim, Meshalmem es hakol, they have to pay the whole 5 because that's what they wanted to get Reuven to pay. They said Reuven stole, that's 2, and he slaughtered it, that's another 3. So altogether it's 5. So they wanted to be Machayev Reuven to pay 5, so they have to pay 5. My love. Now the Gemara says, did all this happen at one time that they came into Bezdin and said Reuven stole and he slaughtered, or maybe no? They came into Bezdin on Sunday and they said, Reuven stole. They come into Bezdin on Monday and said, hey, that guy who I told you he stole, he also slaughtered it. My love, that even it's talking even a case, Sheheidu ala Gneva, they said the Eidos, the testimony that Reuven stole one agid on Sunday. I'm just making it separate days just to be easier, but it could also be the next minute. And afterwards, they were also said testimonial that he also slaughtered it. And then the Eidim Zomim came. So we said they were Eidim Zomim. Maybe each one was also a separate day. On Tuesday, V'huzimu ala Gneva, two Eidim come in and say that what they said testimony that Reuven stole it, they were really with us in Bnei Brak, so that didn't really happen. V'chozru v'huzmu ala Tvicha. And only at a later date did the Eidim Zomim come that the second Eidus was not good. So really we have over here two Eidus and two Zomims. Now we assume that they both happened sort of together, but maybe they happened separately. They said Gneva, and then there was Azama. Then there was, I'm sorry, they said Gneva, then they said Tvicha. Then there was Hazama for the Gneva, and then there was Hazama for the Tvicha. Now, if you say that the Mafreya who nifsal, so right when they become puzzle for the Gneva, right, when they become Muzam for the Gneva, the Tvicha of Chira automatically falls down. Because we said that all the Eiduos that were in between fall down. So now the Eidus of the Tvicha Mechira is not a valid Eidus anymore. So by the time the Eidim Zoimimim come and they're Mazim and they say Hazama for the Eidus of the Tvicha Mechira, that Eidus wouldn't be valid anymore. So we said that when do they have to pay for Eidim? When do they have to pay as Eidim Zoimimim? Only if their witness was going to charge, was going to be a valid testimony that was going to charge him. But over here, before the Eidim Zomim came, their testimony is not valid anymore, and according to Abaye. So then, how come the Mishnah says that they should have to pay all five? The second three, the Eidos of the Tvicha Mechir, they shouldn't be liable to pay anymore because their testimony was not good anymore. Wasn't a good Eidos. Okay, so one more time, if these two Eidim, Kivin the Isimu Lahu Agneva, once they became Eidim Zomamim for the Gneva, Igaloi Milsalim Afreya. So now, by now, we already know that the Chias Hadu Atvicha, a day later, when they said the second Eidus on the Tvicha Mechira Psulim Havu, they weren't valid Eidim because we already found out that they were Zayvim. So it comes out that their second testimony is not a good testimony. So Amai Mishalmim Atvicha, why should they now have to pay when the Eidim Zomimim come and they're Mazim the second Eidus? They say, yeah, that Eidus is already not here anymore. I shouldn't have to pay the second three. You got the kasha? Makes sense. And the Gemara is going to say, according to Abaye that says, so you're going to have to say that it goes together. Amre on our Mishnah that says that they have to pay the whole five, it's going to be that first the Eidim Zomim came for the Tvicha. So now what happens? They have to pay three as Eidim Zomimim, but they don't have to pay for the first two, he said, because what they wanted to be Machaya falsely was the second three. That's false. The first one maybe is a truth statement, right? And then Eidim Zomimim come also on the first one. So over there, each one stands separate, right? Again, Sunday was the Eidus of the Gneva. Monday was the Eidus of the Tvicha Mechira. Tuesday comes the Hazam of the Gneva. Wednesday is the Hazam of the Tvicha Mechira. So then, by the time Tuesday comes, and we know already that they're Pasal Eidus from Sunday, so the Monday Eidus is down. So on Wednesday, when the Eidim come and they're being Mazim the Monday Eidus, we say, hey, there's no Eidus there anymore. But maybe that's not what happened. Sunday, there was an Eidus for the Gneva. Monday was the Eidus for the Tzvicha. Then Tuesday is coming on Monday's Eidus, and Wednesday goes back to Sunday's Eidus.
Why change it?
And to change that around, so that way, when Tuesdays came and the Monday's Eidus went kaput, but the Sunday's Eidus is still standing. So then when the Wednesday's Zoymimim come and they're Mazim Sunday, they're going to have to pay.
But
then,
we're saying we rule by a bias, so it's retroactive.
But it's only retroactive from Monday, because when the Eidim come on Tuesday, they didn't say that Sunday they lied. They're only saying Monday they lied.
Right.
So true, retroactive from Monday and onward. But now when we're talking about Sunday's Eidus, that might still be around. So now on Wednesday comes, and now Eidim Zomim come in. What are you talking about Sunday's Eidus? Yeah, that's a good Eidus as of now. So if now they become Hazama for Sunday's Eidus, they're going to have to pay for that too.
So this can be a term where the owner does get times 7.
It's not going to be 7. It's going to be 5. It's going to be the whole 5.
It's still always going to be 5.
It's always the most is going to be because that's a Tavach Mocha as Mishalim Chamisha. So this kefel and another 3 for the Tavach Mocha. There's going to be 2 kefal. That's the first edus. This will be mechayev 2, and the second edus is mechayev another 3. So you're always going to be at 5. It's not going to be 7, but we're going to have a case that it's going to be the full 5. One more time. I'm sorry. Amrei. Hachamay askinon. Kigon shuhuzmu ala tefillah. The first, on the tefillah, and then only comes the edus. It's fine. When they slaughtered it, that he slaughtered it, that he was now chayav another 3. Amrei, now we still have the problem. Why? Because it's true that Wednesday, when the edus came in to be mazim, to talk about Sunday's edus, it was still kaim, right? But after Wednesday, we're going to find out that Monday's edus was not really valid because they became puzzle from Sunday, right? Yesterday, on Tuesday, we said that they have to pay for Monday's edus because they were trying to be mechayev. But now on Wednesday, we find out that it was a mistake what we made them pay on Tuesday, right? Because we said now we're going to reprogram our computers and everything is going to go back retroactively. So on Wednesday, we find out that Sunday already they said the sheker. So now for Monday's edus, which we thought yesterday they should be liable for that, but they shouldn't really be liable for that because once we do the mafreya or nifsal, so that edus wasn't there.
So they don't pay 2 and 3 separately. They pay back the 3 and they pay a full 5.
Again, that's what we said till now. But now in the kasha, we're saying let them now pay for the first 2, but the 3 that yesterday we said they have to pay, that was a mistake.
Oh.
Right? Yesterday we said, on Tuesday we said they have to pay 3. Why do they have to pay 3? Because we were mazim Monday's edus. But now on Wednesday we find out that yesterday's psak halacha was a mistake. Amri sof ki hadri mitzimi agneva. When we end up being mazim the gnevi gloi milsa. Now it's nizgal the chias hidu atvicha. That when they said Monday's edus, they were really puzzled. So now why should they have to pay? Yesterday on Tuesday we said they have to pay for Monday's edus because
their edus did work though.
We thought it worked, but now we found out that
at that time,
correct.
Say that at that time it did work.
You're right. At the time we thought that it worked, but now we found out that we made a mistake. Let's say Taka happens that Wednesday they come in and they mazim for Sunday. So now what would you say is the halacha for the other 3? The other 3, the Eidim Zomimim who tried should have to pay, or they're going to say we don't have to pay. You thought that we said Eidim, but really we were puzzled. So now give us back what we paid. So why should they have to pay it? So again, so Sofki Hadri Mitzim Yagnevi Gloy Milso. So now it's Gala. The Chias Hadu Atvicha on Monday, Psulam Hafu. They were really puzzled. So now Amay Mishal Mi Atvicha, because they became Huzam on Tuesday, we found out now that it was a mistake. And that's the kasha again on Abaye that says Lemafreya Hu Nipsal. This is part of the complication that once you say Lemafreya Hu Nipsal, you can have all these things. So the Gemara says, you know what? Don't make that there was one edus of Sunday. I'm sorry, but just a second of finishing. There was one edus of we are there was one from Sunday. There was one from Sunday. And on Sunday itself, they said he stole and he slaughtered it right away. One big edus. So it's a little interesting because how could you say like both things exactly together? But he said at once, there was one story. He stole and slaughtered it. And then Edom came and they were mazim that. So then there's no more of a kasha that once we're going to go to Mafreya, the second edus is going to fall off. Because the Hazama was at one time, that time you were in Bnei Brak, so they become Edom Zemimim at once. 1 second. Yeah, Rashi says it has to be like Toch Kedei Dibur. Okay, either way, it was together. I'm not sure. It's the same time they were somewhere else. I guess also, even if it's not Toch Kedei Dibur, if it's a minute later, so then also, what did the Edom Zemimim have to say? At 11 o'clock, you were in Bnei Brak, and at 11:01, you were in Bnei Brak. So that's also true. Okay, so they said it all Toch Kedei Dibur. So there's one time that they said there was
The Edom came on
and when
Monday
they became
and said
Edom,
Sunday gone over to
and then the Edom Zemimim come.
and say that on Sunday you were in Bnei Brak.
You're putting the whole day together. That's a maybe an easier way. And then it would become that you can't ever say that their gneva for tvicha was not true because they were already puzzled from the shasa gneva, because there was one aid.
The whole Adis was trying to get 4 5. It wasn't a separate Adis trying to get 2 and then 3.
I'm sorry, I missed
It
you.
wasn't a separate Adis first trying to get
A
him to pay
gneva,
double
and
then
then
trying to get
it
this.
was
It was
one
all
aidus
one.
of 5.
But then
That's the idea.
But then it's saying that you have to bring once a testimony is a testimony can only be partly disproved, then that wouldn't work. Then it's the whole retroactive thing.
Again, because like
If-
Eidush about the Mitzvah about the Kula, but over here now they became the Hazama, the Eidi Hazama on that whole testimony. That you're saying you saw Reuven steal and slaughter it, that day you were somewhere else.
I thought they're trying to keep it. They're still trying to keep.
No,
it
they
separate.
were not
There's
said
two
no,
sets of
because
Zomarim to
okay, so
disprove
soon we're
things.
gonna have that. That's gonna be the second cases of the Mishnah, right? That we split it into 2. But so far we brought in the Mishnah that we're talking about one group of Eidim said the beginning, and they became Huzam together. Now the Gemara is going to continue over here and try to figure out again the Mikano Laba Nifsal, if he's only Nifsal from the second date onward, or back from the beginning, and the Gemara is going to continue along with the base. Let's start with Mikano. Okay. Shkrach.
Thank you.
Let me just stop the recording. Okay. Bavam's here, and in a minute we'll continue. Opa. The which